On October 15, 2019, police found 5-year-old Katharina Medaglia suffocated to death. Her 11-year-old sister Keisha lay nearby, bloodied but miraculously still alive despite having been stabbed 26 times with a pair of scissors. Shockingly, the young girls suffered this terrible attack at the hands of their very own mother. Anna Lorraine Medaglia, age 30, was found covered with her daughter's blood and incoherent from the influence of methamphetamine. She was unable to offer any explanation as she was led away by police, while her daughters were taken to the hospital, one dead and one barely clinging to life.
Lumuha ka, aking bayan, buong lungkot mong iluha. Ang kawawang kapalaran ng lupain mong kawawa.
Para sa akin, kasi maraming tao ang napeperwisyo. Maraming kabataan ang nasisira. Unang-una po, katulad ko, napakalaking perwisyo po para sa akin yan, drugs. Kasi po, ayan nga, nangyari. Napatay yung anak kong bunso, tapos sira ang pamilya ko. Sa kabila ng lahat na nangyari, maging maligaya rin yung aking namatay. At sana may ano kayong pangalan.
It would be a mistake to assume that the illegal drug menace victimizes only the poor, when in fact it cuts across all sectors of Philippine society. To the extent that, according to expert analysts, the country would have descended to the level of a narco state had President Duterte not taken decisive action. On the day he took office in June 2016, President Rodrigo Duterte declared a war on drugs, just as he had promised during his campaign. Duterte's tough law and order stance, developed during his years as Davao City Mayor, appealed to an overwhelming majority of Filipino voters. Drugs, particularly methamphetamine, known locally as shabu, cheap, easy to produce, and highly addicting, were destroying the fabric of society, destroying young lives, destroying families, and corrupting officials who placed their greed for the profits of the drug trade over their duty to the people. At the end of June 2016, about 1 out of every 100 Filipinos could expect to become a victim of a crime. While the outgoing administration of President Benigno Aquino III was boasting that the overall crime rate had dropped from a high point in 2013, what they were perhaps less enthusiastic about acknowledging was the number of drug-related crimes had more than doubled between 2013 and 2015. The horror of some of these crimes is almost impossible to fathom and shocked the nation. Some of the images and the details you're about to see may be disturbing. In one of the most barbaric crimes in recent memory, Christine Lee Salawan, a 16-year-old high school student from Lapu-Lapu City, was found murdered in a vacant lot near her home on March 11, 2019. The condition Christine was found in horrified even the most hardened investigators. The young girl had been raped and had been stabbed at least 20 times. And in an effort to hide her identity, her killers had peeled her face from her skull. The chief suspect in the case, a certain Renato Lienes, admitted to police he had been stalking Christine and was high on methamphetamine at the time of her murder. And another known drug convict named Jonas Bueno, who was also a suspect in a similarly gruesome murder of a farmer in Mindanao earlier this year. In September 2017, Grace Omadlao, a pretty 16-year-old aspiring to be a teacher, was found dead in Pasig City. An autopsy disclosed she was raped and strangled to death. In the early morning hours of June 27, 2017, 5 suspects entered the home of the Carlos family in San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. Stabbed to death 5 people: Estrella Dizon, age 35, and her mother, Aring, age 58, and 3 children, Donnie, age 11, Ella, age 7, and Dexter Carlos Jr., who was just 1 year old. In addition to being stabbed multiple times, both the adult women had been raped. The family's father and breadwinner, Dexter Carlos Sr., made the gruesome discovery upon returning home from his night shift job as a security guard. Although Carlos was briefly considered a suspect, it soon emerged that this had simply been a horribly random crime. About a day after the murders, a local construction worker named Carmelino Ibanez turned himself into the police and told them that he and 4 friends had gotten high on methamphetamine, broke into the house on a lark. Based on Ibanez's confession, the police identified the 4 other suspects, but until now have not been able to arrest any of them. That is because the community, so shocked at what had happened, took matters into its own hands. Within days of the murder, 3 of the suspects were discovered dead in the area, the apparent victim of vigilantes. The 4th suspect has never been found. Less than a month after the shocking Bulacan massacre, the body of 19-year-old Kimberly Autita was discovered not far from her home in Samal, Davao Oriental. She had been raped and had died of internal bleeding from being struck repeatedly in the abdomen by her assailant. A 20-year-old suspect, a young man who had once surrendered to police as a part of the government's program to offer rehabilitation to drug users, was arrested for the crime after his jacket was found near the young woman's body. He confessed that he had been high on drugs when he killed her because she had refused his romantic advances. For some insights into the effect of illegal drugs on people's emotional stability, we spoke with Dr. Rainier Umali, who is a psychiatrist and a director of the People's Volunteers Against Illegal Drugs.
When you're handling drug abuse, I always emphasize that you should know or you should be aware of psychopathologies. Is that mother having psychosis, personality disorders, mood disorders? See? What if at that point in time, the mother is hallucinating and she's hearing voices to kill those kids, those little demons? See? So it will be easier for her to do that.
So you're saying that the drugs can just amplify?
Yes. It just can trigger or amplify or magnify a prevailing psychopathology on the person. Okay. If that person has an antisocial personality disorder, no? Anti-personality disorder is used to be called psychopath or sociopath. The new term now is, they just, make it sounds better, antisocial personality disorder. So what's one characteristic of an antisocial personality disorder? As in psychopath, they have the propensity for criminal acts.
President Duterte's declaration of a war on drugs was overwhelmingly supported by the Filipino public. In a Social Weather Service poll conducted just this September, 82% of those surveyed gave the anti-drug campaign a rating of satisfied, compared with just 12% who said they were dissatisfied with the government's efforts. And these numbers have hardly changed in the 3 years the government has been pursuing its anti-drug effort. In September 2017, a similar poll revealed an 88% public approval rating.
masasabi ko lang naman po doon is, agree po ako doon since ano po kami, estudyante po kami, tapos minsan ginagabi po kami ng uwi. So kung mapapatupad man po yung war on drugs na yun, pwede po makasiguro po kami sa safety namin, lalo na paggabi po. Para po sa mga kagaya nga naman po ng mga estudyante, mga kababaihan po na di po kami matatakot na mapahama kung sakaling ginagabi po kami or kung sakaling mapunta kami sa lugar na hindi namin alam.
Noon, yung wala pa po si Duterte, ang dami po kasing nagaganap na mga hindi magagandang maraming namamatay, maraming mga inosenteng nadadamay kasi sa mga droga, maraming nare-rape, ganun po. Nakakatulong din po kasi yung war on drugs ni Duterte. Kasi nga po yun, madami na pong nagbabago. Tsaka marami na pong mga nagbago na hindi na nagaganap tulad ng dati na wala pa si Duterte.
Agree ako doon sa kontra-droga ni Presidente. Kasi gusto ko yun. Kasi dito sa amin noon, dati marami dito mga magnanakaw, mga adik, sa akin lang 3 sidecar kong nawala eh. Dahil sa mga halangang bituka na yan, mga walang iya. Pag nakadroga, kung ano lang yung mga nasa isip nila. Kaya mas maganda talaga na may kontra-droga. Kaya gusto ko yung programa ni Presidente, yung kontra-droga na yan.
Dahil po ako nag-agree dahil sa war on drugs po. Dahil din po sa mga pangyayari na pagnanakaw, paggawa ng masama ng mga tao dahil lang sa drugs. Tapos parang nakakaperwisyo rin po sa mga pamilya nila dahil nadadamay din po sa mga gulo. Tapos parang nakaka-apekto na rin po sa sarili po nila dahil nawawala na po sila sa sarili nila kaya nakagawa na po sila ng masama. Naging epekto po nun sa akin dahil yung mga kuya ko po kasi dati nung nagda-drugs po sila, lagi pong nawawala yung mga gamit ko. Pinagbibenta po nila para lang mapagdroga. Tapos nung nakulong po sila nang matagal, tas yun po, meron pong mga bagong gamit na di na rin po nawawala simula nung nagbago rin po sila dahil po doon.
Sa akin naman sa ngayon okay kasi tahimik naman siya at saka lalo na may anak akong babae, parang naman siya na mas safe siya ngayon kaysa noon. Kasi noon kalat talaga ang droga eh. Parang sa paningin ko dati wala kang tiwala sa kapaligiran kasi kung kahit saan na lang yun may droga. Pero ngayon ayos na, parang kampante ka na rin kung nasaan yung anak mo. Doon na rin, kaya boto din ako doon sa ni President Duterte.
Despite a ringing and consistent public endorsement of President Duterte's objectives, the anti-drug campaign immediately became controversial because of the media's focus on the violence that erupted as soon as law enforcement agencies led by the Philippine National Police launched their campaign. Duterte's own occasionally incendiary rhetoric helped to fuel the controversy, and a rash of so-called extrajudicial killings, murders carried out by misguided vigilantes or other perpetrators taking advantage of the chaos to silence rivals or witnesses or to carry out other crimes, gave the impression to some, particularly the president's critics, that a systematic campaign of violence was being carried out. And unfortunately, there have been some innocent victims, persons tragically caught in the crossfire or killed by rogue elements in law enforcement. One of these controversial incidents occurred on August 17, 2017, when Kian De Los Santos, a 17-year-old high school student from Caloocan, was killed by police. De Los Santos, identified as a drug courier by the 3 officers involved in his death, was shot, they said, when he resisted arrest. But CCTV footage of police taking him into custody and eyewitness accounts told a different story.
Nangyari kay Kian, dapat yun nakipag-coordinate sila dun sa barangay captain. Nung hinuli nila, nakuha nila yung tao, dapat dinala sa barangay hall. Di ba? Dapat tinawag nila si Kagawad, si Kapitan, dapat kahit isa dun tinawag nila. Ano nangyari? Buti na lang may CCTV doon.
So it happened 2 years ago, August 16 of 2017. So I was the barangay captain at Barangay 160 Caloocan City. So it happened gabi. So at around 9 p.m., tumawag sa akin yung XO ko na about the shooting incident. So, hindi ko alam kung what really happened that night kasi wala naman doon ako sa barangay nung nangyari yun. Nasa bahay ako. So, ni-report sa akin ng XO ko na meron ng shooting incident na nagkaroon ng inkwentro yung kapulisan at saka nga yung parang drug suspect. Yun yung sabi sa akin ng aking XO.
In November 2018, the 3 police officers, Arnel Oaris, Jeremias Pereda, and Jerwin Cruz, were each handed life sentences for the murder of Kian de los Santos and ordered to pay compensation to the victim's family. It is certainly important not to diminish the tragedy of lives unnecessarily lost, but cases such as that of Kian de los Santos are still seen as exceptions by most of the public. However, putting the results in the most positive light, the anti-drug campaign has exacted a heavy toll. According to government data, between July 1st, 2016 and the end of July 2019, 5,651 people have been killed as a result of anti-drug operations. Recently, however, these claims have been challenged by a more careful analysis of crime data, which suggests that the number of possible extrajudicial or accidental victims is closer to 800 to 1,000 people. As a consequence, some of the president's most vocal critics have begun to walk back their earlier claims. What is being missed in the intense focus on drug war killings is, on the one hand, what the government's campaign has revealed about the appalling scale of the epidemic of drugs and criminality in the Philippines, and on the other, the tragic toll on law enforcement personnel in carrying out anti-drug operations. President Duterte has proven his earnest desire to rid his country of the drug menace by appointing his most vocal critic to take the lead in the government's anti-illegal drug campaign. Her appointment was an invitation to Vice President Robredo to contribute in a positive way, prosecute the drug lords, save the victims of illegal drugs, and thereby help craft a bright future for the Philippines.
Kung ito ang pagkakataon para matigil ang patayan ng mga inosente at mapanagot ang kailangang managot, papasanin ko ito. Kaya tinatanggap ko ang trabaho na binibigay sa akin ng Panginoon.
Although the number of drug pushers, syndicate members, and users killed in police operation or by vigilantes has captured the public's attention and raised concern among outside observers, those statistics tell only part of the story. The best available data at the beginning of the government's anti-drug campaign indicated that there were as many as 1.7 million users of methamphetamine or shabu in the Philippines, or about 1.6% of the entire population. For comparison, this is a proportion of users nearly 3 times that of the U.S. Generally acknowledged figure is about 0.6% of the population, and where methamphetamine trafficking and use is considered an epidemic. To many people, scenes such as in Mexico, where innocents are randomly slaughtered and violent drug cartels rule wide areas of the country, are the only possible future for the Philippines if they are forced to choose between human rights and human lives. The problem, however, might be much worse than that. One of the more unique aspects of the anti-drug campaign has been the huge number of drug users who have voluntarily surrendered to police rather than run the risk of arrest or falling victim to violence. In less than a year, between July 2016 and May 2017, more than 1.2 million confessed drug users turned themselves in, or in some cases, were delivered to the police by concerned family members. In addition, about 200,000 people have been arrested in anti-drug operations. These vast numbers of drug users have been the market for a complex web of drug suppliers and distributors protected by a number of corrupt police and government officials. These have been particular targets of the president, who has ordered the police to aggressively seek them out, especially rogue officers within the ranks of the PNP. Over the past 3 years, the campaign has netted nearly 700 officials, 284 elected officials, more than 300 government employees, and 77 uniformed personnel. Doing anything short of killing drug lords appears to be an exercise in futility insofar as ending the drug menace is concerned. Look at what happened to admitted drug kingpin Kerwin Espinosa. On a purely technical matter, lack of evidence, he was released, presumably free to resume his illegal drug trade. Who else is in this category? Peter Lim, Mayor Aniceto Lopez, Dio Gomez Castro, and others. While critics lament the number of suspects killed since the start of the war on drugs, the success in removing drug personalities from society have come at a high price for law enforcement personnel. Earlier this year, the Philippine National Police reported that 165 officers have been killed and another 575 wounded in anti-drug operations, belying claims by critics that operations are mostly being carried out against poor, defenseless suspects. These losses are no less tragic and are no less painful to friends and loved ones than those of people who have died in anti-drug operations.
Pauwi siya, papunta siya sa akin para magsundo, meron silang bypass operation na gagawin na dapat yun na yung target nila, nauna lang. Kumbaga, nasalubong niya na, chance niya na yun, kaya inano niya na, kumbaga sinitan niya na. Yun yung nangyari nung time na yun. Sobrang hirap kasi parang nawalan ka ng yung kasama mo sa buhay mo na biglaan lang, wala man lang paalam, na katulad niyan, wala kayong usapan na ganyan, na mababalita mo na lang, bigla na lang siyang, ganun ang nangyari. Sobrang hirap kasi iba yung namin yung bonding namin mag-asawa pa, ganun. Trabaho din naman kasi nila. Tsaka para rin naman din dun sa mga kabataan. Mas mahirap kung halimbawa lahat naman gagawa ng ganun. Pero katulad sa asawa ko, siyempre wala naman din sinumpaan nila yung tungkulin nila, yung to serve to country.
From the very beginning of the government's campaign against illegal drugs, one of the key objectives has been to unmask the true face of the drug menace in the Philippines. Even the most strident critics of the anti-drug campaign would agree that illegal drugs are destructive. But the hidden nature of the drug culture, protected from view in many cases by corrupt government and law enforcement officials, profiting in their own way from this multi-billion peso industry, encourages a kind of denial. It makes people uncomfortable to acknowledge that illegal drugs are everywhere. But the lack of facts about how thoroughly drugs have permeated Philippine society means that they don't have to. What the government's efforts revealed was that nearly half of the country's 42,000 barangays were drug affected. That is, having some presence of drug users or drug traffickers. And the problem was even worse in some parts of the country. In Metro Manila, for instance, 97% of the barangays were said to be drug affected. Looking at the drug epidemic from a community perspective has helped the government to define its strategy to remove the drug menace and the damage it causes from the country. And a great deal of progress has been made. According to government data, from July 2016 through July of this year, or about half of President Duterte's 6-year term in office, about half, or a little more than 14,000 of the drug-affected barangays have been declared drug-free. That success has been possible to a large extent because the government has approached its anti-drug campaign as a public health initiative to a far greater degree than a law enforcement effort. Something that, again, the focus on violence and deaths in the drug war overlooks. This, then, is the real war for the future, and unknown to most people, it is a policy that has the backing of the United Nations. One of the key UN-supported Sustainable Development Goals for the Philippines is to strengthen the prevention and treatment of substance abuse. To that end, the government now devotes about 90% of its anti-drug efforts to rehabilitation and recovery. Currently, there are 15 large drug rehabilitation facilities operating under the Department of Health nationwide. including a massive 10,000-bed facility in Nueva Ecija. Getting hooked on drugs is easy, but the rehabilitation process is long and difficult, as Guillermo Gomez, who is the Senior Program Director of the Bridges of Hope Group, explained.
Well, it's based on an old modality that was developed back in New York. Well, before New York, it was already born. It was the therapeutic community technology. Although it's grown a lot, Daytop was the one that utilized this a lot in New York. We're using now a different model, very similar to it. They call it an eclectic modality, an eclectic therapeutic community wherein we're open to a lot of approaches. We also have actually the 12 steps of NA and AA incorporated on it, but then we launch it at a certain phase. It's relatively 3 phases. We have an intensive phase wherein our residents have to undergo the program basically alone, inside, but with us, wherein we frontline addiction professionals develop a relationship with them. At the same time, we have a relationship also with the family. So somehow, it's symbiotic. While we're educating our residents, we also have to educate the family.
But that tells only part of the story. From the government's perspective, the fight to save the country's future requires what it calls a whole-of-nation approach. This is where clearing barangays of illegal drugs is critical. The bulk of rehabilitation efforts happen at the community level, many managed through the Barangay Anti-Drug Abuse Council under the Department of Interior and Local Government, and others operated with government assistance by former drug dependents themselves.
Dapat ang kada barangay sa buong Pilipinas maging badak functional. Kasi may functionality yung badak namin eh. 1 to 100 yan. Titignan kung ano ang mga proyektong ginagawa mo sa barangay against illegal drugs. Merong konseho yan. Kasama ang academe. Siyempre, kailangan hanggang eskwelahan may campaign tayo against illegal drugs. From elementary or from K1 to K12. Di ba? Dapat yan, meron tayong school base. Meron tayong barangay base. And of course, ang atakihin namin, family base. Dahil dun nang uumpisa ang kadrugahan sa bahay, sa pamilya. Kaya dito, ito ang gagawin namin sa barangay.
Umamit ako ng Cebu, dumiskarte ko sarili ko. Para makagamit, tutulak ako. 2011, nandalin ako sa Leyte, LRP, Leyte Regional Prison. Kahit doon sa loob ng prison, meron pa rin. Hindi nawawala. Nung umpo si Presidente, hindi na ako gumamit ng tikim, hindi na. Malaki mawawala sa buhay mo pag pinasok mo yan. Tulad ko, 1/4 ng pamumuhay ko nasa kulungan.
Bali nagsimula ako ma-involve sa drugs. High school ako noon, mga 1997, mga ganyan. Hanggang sa nagdire-diretso nga siya hanggang sa 2016. Sa programa ng pamahalaan natin na ating Pangulo doon sa war on drugs. Nakabalik kami ngayon sa naayos ang buhay namin. Kumbaga, pero kami sa ng pagkakataon na maayos ulit ang buhay namin, makabalik kami sa lipunan ng walang diskriminasyon.
Curiosity, yun ang talagang number 1 eh. Baka gusto mong malaman kung ano yan. Yung iba, una sa garilyo, nagsimula sa garilyo. Tapos makakita mo sa marijuana. Hanggang sa nag-syrup ako. Pagkatapos na mag-syrup, nung tinigilan ko syrup, natuto naman ako magsabu. Pero ito na nga, nung presidente si Presidente Duterte, nagkaroon ng mahigpitan, nagkaroon po ng di ba yung tokhang. Nakatok sa bahay. Hindi kasi ibig sabihin ng tokhang papatayin. Nakatok ka, kinatok sa bahay niyo. Nagkaroon kami ng program, yung rehab sa barangay. Yung nakalabas ka, nag-rehab ka, pero nasa laya ka. Ngayon meron ka nag-community service, community, yung inaatinan kayo sa church. Tsaka yung mga programs ng simbahan, yung sipag, sanlakbay. Yung iba naman, KKD, psychological. Yun ang ano namin. Ang final yun eh. Hindi nakagraduate lahat kami noon. Pag isa nagdodroga, wasak ang pamilya. Sa bansa, pagka yan, minamumuhayan pa rin ng mga nagdodroga, wasak ang bansa natin. Yun ang totoo. Gumamit ang Panginoon para mabago. Hindi yun naman si Presidente lang may gusto niyan eh. Ang Panginoon na may gusto niyan. Dahil pagka walang guide ni God dyan, wala rin. Kahit ano sabihin ni Duterte, hindi mangyayari pag walang blessings sa taas.
Altogether, there are many government agencies, along with civil society and church organizations, that are working to save the people of the Philippines from the drug menace and give them an opportunity for a future. And the effort goes on beyond mere law enforcement or rehabilitation activities. The Department of Trade and Industry, for example, has launched what it calls its AID campaign, a program to offer small business and livelihood assistance to recovering drug dependents through its successful negocio centers. Director General Aaron Aquino of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency gave us an explanation of the government's holistic strategy towards eradicating drugs from the country.
Philippine Drug Enforcement Agencies initiated a program to be created or committee to be created, and it was called the Interagency Committee on Anti-Illegal Drugs. This is actually a 41 member government agencies collaborating each other to address properly the problem on illegal drugs. It is being clustered into four, and that is law enforcement, justice, advocacy, and rehabilitation and reintegration. It enables the government to implement a holistic approach, a one government approach to address the problem.
As an outsider, coming as I do from America, a country that has its own tremendous drug problem, it is easy to see why President Duterte and his administration have declared an all-out war on drugs. So much of the potential of this young and very productive country is being lost, and that's a discouraging thing to see. Just in economic terms alone, about 6%, roughly 1 trillion pesos, of the economic value of this country is being lost to drugs, either through money circulating through the drug trade or lost productivity. According to Wilson Lee Flores, an economist and the president of the Anvil Business Club, the economic cost of the drug menace in the Philippines is almost incalculable.
I have read news. The president mentioned that the victims of the illegal drugs problem is in the millions of people who are affected because of addiction. So I estimate the cost, the negative cost on our society of the illegal drug trade is in the billions of pesos. Not only billions of pesos in terms of unpaid taxes, crime, but another dimension that we should not forget, many billions of pesos are wasted in terms of health problem. It's the medical cost of treating drug addicts, the medical cost of treating crime victims, and all these are part of the cost of the illegal drug trade.
However, we cannot ignore that there have been tragic missteps. Many lives have been lost, and even one innocent life lost is one too many. The government, though, is not ignoring the deaths. There have been 5,600 people killed in the anti-drug campaign, but 3,600 cases have been recommended for disciplinary action by the PNP. And of those, 350 have been recommended for criminal charges. No one who champions human rights can say that if children, families, or an entire society does not have the right to a future. Yet that is precisely the stark choice the critics of the anti-drug campaign are asking the country to make.
Di bale kung ikaw lang na gumagamit ang napeperwisyo. Ang kawawa yung katulad namin eh. Na wala naman kaming alam, hindi naman kami gumagamit, pero kami ang epektado. Kami ang napeperwisyo. Alang-alang man lang sa aking anak na nakarecover, yun. Malaking suporta ang gagawin ko para sa drugs na yan. Mapatigil lang. Kung maaari nga, yung asawa kong nagamit yan para matigil na, patayin na eh. Para lang hindi na pamarisan ba. Mahirap talaga. Mahirap yung katulad ko. Hindi natin maiwasan yung maisip natin yung ano. Kaya ayaw ko magpa-interview minsan eh. Nahihirapan ako, naalala ko yung bata.
Your concern is human rights. Mine is human life.